Hello? How do I turn this? Is this on? Where's Danny? Danny, how do I turn this on? It's on? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Do you need me to have a microphone? Okay. Okay. How about that? Much better. Okay. Thank you all for being here at our annual meeting, otherwise known as a Quickie Board Meeting plus some. At last year's annual meeting, I talked about what a challenging year it was, with the war in Gaza having been just over 7 months old, hundreds of hostages unaccounted for, along with a significant rise in anti-Semitism that put a sense of despair over the Jewish community in the U.S. and abroad. And sadly, a year later, our hearts are in the same place. We continue to fight our enemies and seek the return of the remaining hostages and seek peace. I pray that there'll be an end to this war soon and we'll have the safe return of the remaining hostages. And I also pray that we'll see strides in battling the increase in anti-Semitism. We are thrilled to have Rebecca Hirsch, Rachel Hirsch, and Rebecca Weininger from the ADL who's here and will speak with us in a bit and have a conversation and discussion about confronting anti-Semitism, which is really couldn't be a more important time for that. Here at Temple Jeremiah, we had a very successful year. I'm incredibly grateful for the work of our board, our executive committee, our committee chairs, all our committee members, all our volunteers. Thank you very much. And your hard work has led to many accomplishments. We focused on fostering engagement and acting as ambassadors for Temple. We worked very hard and learned a lot about different community commitment structures. Dan will attest to that. And I think it's safe to say that this conversation is, quote, to be continued. We adopted a Temple Code of Ethics. We added a third leg of our third leg of social action with a philanthropy program. We added anti-Semitism as a platform on our advocacy platform. We've been working hard on recruitment, on improving our communications, and even on improving our physical building. We greatly improved our financial accounting by having Florence Garmus join us as a controller. We worked incredibly hard on a plan for our rabbi transition, and we look forward to Rabbi Cohn's 26th year of leadership that's coming up. And we also look forward to Rabbi Heaps, who will be the new senior rabbi a little over a year from now. There's so much more that I could go into that we've worked on, that we've accomplished, but we don't want to be here all night. I will add that the highlight of this year and our accomplishments was really welcoming our new cantor, Leanna Mendelson, to our Temple Jeremiah community. Cantor, where are you? There you are. You are off and running. We love your passion, your dedication, your musical leadership, your beautiful voice. You've enriched our Temple Jeremiah community, and for that we are grateful. And we're excited for still what is yet to come as you bring joy, inspiration, and help us work towards being a Jewish community of meaningful connection. We have a few pieces of business to get to, and then some people to celebrate, and then we'll have our guest speakers. But first I'm going to hand it off to Rabbi for Devar Torah.
Thank you, Steve. I want to invite you to either join with me in the blessing for study, or if you prefer to refrain with Amen at the end, you're welcome to do that as well. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. One of my favorite verses from the Hebrew Bible is the verse from Micah, chapter 6, verse 8, where Micah simply states, you've been told what God demands of you, to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. And this is a deceptively simple verse. What does it mean really to do justice, to work for justice? What does it mean to love mercy? And mercy is not really a great translation of the word chesed. I prefer the word kindness to it. To love kindness, to pursue kindness, and to walk humbly with God. And what could that possibly mean? Well, part of the answer is in one of this week's portions. It's a double portion this week, Bahar Bechukotai, taking us to the end of the book of Leviticus. And in Bechukotai, the verse opens up with, or the portion opens up with, if you walk in my ways, God says. If you walk in my ways. And then the continuation, of course, is there will be blessing, right? And so not only that, but if you walk in my ways, then God also says, I will walk with you. So there is a sense of relationship, that walking with God is not just about thinking about God or not just about fulfilling the commandments. It's certainly that, but it is about this opportunity that we have to be in relationship, to really meet God, walking together. And I thought that was such a beautiful idea, particularly for this evening. This notion of partnership, of being able to walk together and not having to walk alone. Rebecca, we were talking about this just a moment ago, about how that we have this opportunity and really this responsibility to be together and to work together. And my experience at Temple Jeremiah is really a model for what it means to be in partnership with the professional staff and the volunteer leadership. That's been a hallmark since before I came to Jeremiah, but certainly has been fulfilled throughout the many years that I've been privileged to be a part of the community. And we continue in this way. And I'm so very grateful for this partnership. I do not take it for granted at all, to be able to work with wonderful leaders like all of you, to be able to work with my colleagues, my professional colleagues, and to be supported in this way. And that this is really the key to not only the success of the congregation, but the success in the work that we do, in realizing that vision of being a Jewish community of meaningful connection, and being able to not only work within the walls of the synagogue, but to look outside of the walls as well. And we're going to hear more about the ways that we can do that working together. On a personal note, this is a community that is incredibly supportive. Warm and welcoming does not begin to really describe what this community is about. I knew this in my heart when we were first looking to come to Jeremiah. Kathy and I, we had long talks together about where we're going to move from Maine, which is really it's such a beautiful place, a very difficult place to leave. But coming here and meeting the people really flipped the switch for us. And this past fall, with Kathy's health and the way that we felt so embraced and enveloped, and the texts and the calls and the meals and thank you is not adequate. It is deeply appreciated by both Kathy and me and our family, and so thank you for walking with us, being our partners, and engaging in this sacred work of being a Kehillah Kadosha, of being a sacred community. And to this, let us all say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. A few pieces of business to address. The first is our consent agenda, which is our board meeting minutes from April 28th meeting, which was in Teams, so I presume you all had a chance to read that through. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? The minutes are passed and part of our permanent record. Next up is I invite our immediate past president, Scott Levin, to the microphone for our nominating slate.
Thank you, Steve. This is so exciting to follow Rabbi Cohen's Devar Torah with the nominating committee. If we had more time, I'd tell a good joke, but I'm not going to do that to you. So we have a nominating committee duly appointed by our board of directors, and you can see the officers slated to serve for 1 year, ending June 2026. Our president, Steve Kleinman, will start his 3rd year. Executive Vice President Avi Greenfield will start his 3rd year. And we have, the bylaws say we can have between 3 and 6 vice presidents, and we are blessed to have a full slate of vice presidents with, and if you could just put your hand up, so if there are those who don't know you, Barb Kite, Alyssa Rogers, Tanya Silverstein, I didn't see her, I don't think, Jerry Tater, Sue Weitzman, and Dan Verona. And of note is on this executive committee made up of the folks you see there, both Barb Kite and Dan Verona are moving from the board of directors to the executive committee. We also have treasurer Brian Rubin and recording secretary Greg Richards going for another year in both of those very, very critical positions. Members of the board of directors slated to serve for 3 years, ending in June 2028. So the way the bylaws work is you serve a 3-year term, you have an option to renew for another 3 years, and at the end of those 6 years, you kind of move off unless you choose to do another 2 terms, but you have to be voted on. So Brad Buchanan and Dana Garbarski, there's Dana and did I see and Brad. So thank you very much for agreeing to renew and do a second 3-year term. And the fact that the contract was signed in blood didn't faze either of you, which was great. And then we have John Fellman and Aileen Frost making a these are nuances, but this is very important. They were very gracious in moving from the executive committee to the board of directors because they have a lot of institutional memory, and with the transition, it's going to be extremely helpful to have them stay on the board. So thank you, John. You can raise your hand. And Aileen, I think I saw Aileen. Thank you very much for agreeing to make that move. Then we have 2 new board members, Dana Jones and Jackie Lutz. Jackie would have been here. She's feeling a little under the weather, but both Dana and Jackie came through the Behind the Beam Leadership Development Cohort, which continues to feed a wonderful, wonderful, strong pipeline to the board of directors. And we actually have people on the bench, for next year a deep bench. I also did want to mention, did Danny, you make these slides? Yeah, thank you. So recognizing Gary, who I don't think Gary is here tonight, and Jill, I saw Jill, will be stepping off the board, and we want to thank you for your service to the board. They are not stepping away, they're just stepping off, because Jill is still very involved in advocacy work, and Gary, as many of you know, is involved in a lot of different things that help our temple in many different ways. And those are the members of the nominating committee that help to smooth the transition. I don't know if we need a vote. Yes, because the votes went out. So, wonderful. How? Even though we tried. What a relief. All right, thank you very much.
All right, wonderful job, Scott. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone on the board and the officers and the whole bit. It's wonderful. Next, I want to invite Brian up, our treasurer, who will present the budget for approval. Here you go.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, Temple Jeremiah community. I am happy to present this year's proposed budget to our board that was approved by our board of directors last month. Year-long effort went into developing our 2025-2026 operating budget. Special thanks go out to our budget committee. I chaired it. Brad Gordon, Avi, Steve Kleiman, Jeff Krupp, Michael Schack, Justin Shepard, and Sue Weitzman participated along with our clergy, our new controller Florence, as well as our executive director Danny Glassman, who spent numerous evenings reviewing the temple's financial statements as well as discussing the proposed budget. These past few years certainly has posed a continued challenge for the temple, given the number of households on financial adjustment, continued increases in our operating costs as well. And the current economic outlook continues to be uncertain. That puts just additional pressure on our membership and fundraising to fill the gaps. Our operating budget was developed in large part of utilizing our actual projected results for our 2024-2025 fiscal year, along with the expectation of future household renewals, changes in our annual community commitment, our fundraising goals, as well as changes to our staffing, programming, and our other operational needs as well. So we prepared a couple of graphs for you. Just to provide just high-level overview of where our sources and uses of our expenditures come from. This slide shows our proposed income or sources of income that make up our operating budget. The top three categories: member commitment of 63%, school fees of 11%, and fundraising of about 10% make up over 85% of our budgeted income. Turning to expenses, this outlines kind of the nature of the expenses that are within our budget. The top three categories make up 96%, so there's not much wiggle room. About 79% of our expenses are payroll and salary and benefits. The second is about 8% of our administrative costs: phone, software, postage, equipment, maintenance for our computers, IT, things like that. And about 8% goes to the facility, which is in the areas of utilities, maintenance, securities, and building supplies. And the way we actually budget is we budget by department. And so we take those costs and we push them into each of the budgets that we propose on. And as you can see from here, the top three, which make up the majority, are religious services of 37%, administrative 29%, and building representing about 17%. I wanted to just kind of walk through a couple of highlights to our budget, starting with income. Overall, our income from last year, the current fiscal year, to this fiscal year is expected to increase about 6% to $2.6 million. Going down some of the significant line items for member commitment, we anticipate about a $50,000 increase in net commitment revenue, which includes a recommendation to slightly increase our full community commitment by 1% or $50 to $3,550. We anticipate our overall households to increase from the prior year to by 15 to just short of 700 households. On our school income, there's a slight increase of 4%. We expect about a 7 student increase from the prior year across all grades, and we're proposing to increase JQuest fees between $25 and $50 to counteract the increase in the operating costs, which is primarily salaries. Facility income, projecting an increase of 5%. We'll continue to increase or rent out our facility to Bridge and other third-party support groups. And we also anticipate some additional revenue from our new BBYO partnership. And also our facility income also includes the security fee that we expect to collect from each household. Fundraising expected to increase 5% or $13,000. Projected increases from annual fund gifts, purchases of plaques, leaves, and our high holiday giving. Programming income is expected to decrease 13%, and this includes the B'nai Mitzvah fees. And this decline in income is due to the decline in students participating in our program next year. And then last but not least, miscellaneous income includes interest and dividend income of approximately $129,000, or a projected earnings of 3.3% from our general and building endowments for the year ending December 31st, 2025. In the past, we were on what I would say a lag basis, where we applied interest and dividends from the prior calendar year. But given the increase in donations and the building endowment, we decided to increase the interest and dividends to utilize the same interest and dividends in the same calendar year that the expenses are being incurred. Moving ahead to budgeted expenses. The budget committee spent multiple sessions discussing, reviewing the projected operating expenses of the temple. As I mentioned, 79% of the temple's operating expenses pertain to salaries, benefits, payroll taxes, with really the balance covering building and administrative in nature. We project, if you look at the second column, fiscal year 26 expenses to be $2.69 million, which represents a 5% increase, or $136,000 from the prior year. And if we just stopped right there, our initial budgeted expenses would have generated about a $66,000 deficit. And so in order to present a balanced budget, we are proposing to allocate $66,000 from the restricted funds, whether it's clergy discretionary, music, education, and other designated restricted funds that have been raised in the prior year to cover certain expense categories to allow us to have a balanced budget. And so after doing this, if you look at the second to the right column, our total expenses to match our projected income would be a net increase of about 3%. And so let me just summarize a couple of the larger differences. From a school perspective, it looks like we decreased about 4%. However, one of the changes that we made in the current year, we've done this both in school and programming, is we moved the security costs from these respective line items into the building line item. And so had we have not have done the reallocation, the school budget would have just increased about 3%, which covers the projected salary increases. Programming looks like it doubled if you look at the first two columns, and really that's a presentation change. The first column, what we projected, was net of funds that we utilized from our restricted funds into this budgeted amount of about $21,000. And this year we decided to just show it on a gross basis, or without the allocation from restricted funds. But at the end of the day, on a net basis, it's a slight decrease in programming year over year. And then that really leaves the balance of building, which, as you can see, increased about 21%, or about $77,000, reflecting our overall operating costs of the budget. However, if you take out the allocated security costs that we moved in this year, unlike last year from school and programming, our operating expenses would have only increased about $11,000 or $38,000. And so, again, the majority of the increase this year is from salaries and payroll, running the building, as well as our third-party janitorial service contract. And really the remaining amount, or around 18,000, really covers the increase in health insurance costs, contracts relating to our building maintenance, insurance, supplies, as well as utilities, which are relatively fixed in nature. And then last but not least, our miscellaneous expense budget, you'll see increased. It's a new line item this year from 0 to 20,000. This year we pledged $1,800 to remain in good standing with the URJ, and then we allocated about $18,000 to cover expenses regarding the search for the new clergy position, as well as covering certain miscellaneous expenses to our celebration of Rabbi Cohen. And the celebration committee is also operating under the premise to make the rest of the event budget neutral as possible. So this concludes my remarks. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Brian. So we had a presentation at our April 28th board meeting as well, with the understanding that there'd be a month for any questions that came up. So maybe some of you did reach out and ask questions and get some clarifications. But at this point, I'm now presenting this budget, and I present the motion to approve the budget. All in favor of approving the budget, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstained? The budget is passed, and we will continue with a new fiscal year come July 1. Brian and the Budget Committee, thank you very much for your hard work. There was a lot of hours put into that. Greatly appreciate it. I want to invite Rabbi Heaps up to present our Todd E. Gray Diane Mary Katz Scholarship Award.
Thank you. I get my annual honor of offering our Todd E. Gray and Diane Mary Katz Scholarship to one of our graduating seniors. And before I tell you all about how fantastic Lindy is, I would love to remind us about who Toddy and Diane Mary Katz were. Toddy Gray was the mother of Jim Gray and Bobby Katz, mother-in-law of Martha Gray, grandmother to Larry and Stephen and Kiki, Amanda and Brian, Josh and Carolyn, Jesse and Allie, and I'm sure we could build the whole family tree in there. She was born in 1913 here in Chicago, and she was the very first member of her family to go to college. She graduated from Northwestern University, and while she was there, she met her husband, Milton Gray. Toddy was always, for her whole life, and is deeply remembered as being a warm and loving person. She was attentive to her children, her husband, her grandchildren, and her many, many friends. And if someone ever needed her, she would be the first person to drop everything and to lend a hand. She always made time for the people who she loved. She set aside special time for each of her grandchildren. She was caring and humorous and had such a sense of integrity that made her someone worthy of remembering. And Diane Mary Katz, when she passed, she was only 32 years old. Diane was the daughter of Bobby and Paul Katz, the sister of Larry and Stephen. She was smart and sensitive, and she was loving to her family, and her cousins who adored her, and she was confirmed here at Temple Jeremiah and graduated from Glenbrook South and then Wesleyan University. After she spent some time working in New York, she came back here. She came back to Chicago and graduated from Northwestern for law, and she was a great student, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong because I'm not a lawyer. She received the Order of the Coif. Sure. This is why I'm a rabbi and not a lawyer. And she was an attorney with Sidley Austin. Diane loved to travel, and she would think of nothing of just driving across country by herself, and even went to Vietnam all on her own. She had a sense of adventure and is also remembered as being an extremely ethical and caring person. Jim Gray and Bobby Katz set up this scholarship fund so that their loved ones, Toddy Gray and Diane Mary Katz, would be honored and remembered in continuing to give, continuing to honor education, and continuing to support our students as they continue their own education and continue to what comes next in their own college education. And so, Lindy, the recipient of our Toddy Gray and Diane Mary Katz scholarship this year, submitted this wonderful essay all about her connection to Jewish community, and I just want to highlight a couple pieces of it in case you have not yet had the opportunity to meet Lindy or to travel to DC with Lindy or to hear all about her camp experience through her bat mitzvah, Devar Torah from Lindy. She has been building this resume for her whole life. So just a couple interesting facts about Lindy. She's one of our madrachim in our JQuest program and has been one of our madrichot since she was able to, since she joined high school. And she wrote that she was overjoyed to be able to give back to the community that taught her so much about core Jewish values and helped to teach the children in our community about what it means to be a good person. And if you were ever here while Lindy was a madricha, and you would see her with, one year she was with second grade, she changed different grades a couple years, seeing the kids follow her around and just kind of, anytime she started speaking, they would just listen, which is not something easy to do on a Sunday morning. You could tell that she had such compassion and such attention for these young kids. And a couple years ago, Lindy traveled with me and two other high schoolers on the Reform, the Religious Action Center of Reform Judaism Litaken seminar. It's quite a mouthful, to learn how to lobby and how to use her own Jewish values in order to affect change in our country and in our political climate, and gave speeches in both of our senators' offices, in both Senator Durbin and Senator Duckworth's office, and to her representative, and spoke about climate change, spoke about gun control, and spoke about mental health support in high school. And seeing her learning with her peers, seeing her take these issues that seemed really, really big and to be able to put it into a 3-minute speech about why she was passionate about the cause and what Judaism had to say about it and how we wanted people to vote in order to honor our Jewish values, was seeing someone really come alive and seeing someone take all the things that she had been learning for the last 16 years of her life and really be able to put them into action. And the last example she gives about how she has learned about building community and continues to do that work was through the camp that she goes to, which is a camp that supports kids with chronic illnesses. And it was the first opportunity where Lindy had to really be in a place where she could eat anything she wanted because nothing there would interfere with anything that she didn't want it interfering with, where she would get to connect with people who understood her day-to-day and the way that it changes how you interact with yourself and with your world when you have to add extra layers of what is good for me and what is the best for the people around me. Lindy has spent so much time there as a camper and was so passionate about her time at camp that she is becoming a counselor for her own campers to continue to build this community. And everything that Lindy has done in order to teach the next generation, to bring her Judaism to life, to continue to build a life of rich Jewish meaning that she's going to bring all the way to Ohio with her, is just, it's been so wonderful to be able to see her doing this from every step between when I first met you 8 years ago to being able to celebrate your bat mitzvah with you, to being able to travel around the country with you, to being able to celebrate your graduation, and being able to celebrate and support your next steps. And so, Lindy, it is my pleasure to offer you the Toddy Gray Diane Mary Katz Scholarship that will help you in your next educational endeavors, and you have to promise to come back and to keep teaching us all about the new communities that you continue to build. Deal? Excellent. Ooh, that does not fit.
We need to prove that it happened. You're the winner.
Thank you, Rabbi. Okay, I think that's a wrap on the meeting. A couple quick good and welfare pieces. Alyssa Rogers, Mazel Tov on your son Jacob's bar mitzvah. Woo! And a Mazel Tov to Phyllis. There was a beautiful concert yesterday, Kol Zimra, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, concert, a Jewish community choir of 50 strong, with a lot of Temple Jeremiah members, a beautiful concert, and it was in honor of Phyllis and Mike, our very own Phyllis Mitzen on the board, and her husband Michael, so Mazel Tov on that. And thank you, and Cantor did a beautiful job with a couple of pieces in the concert. It was really wonderful. Anything else? Good and welfare? No, I call the meeting adjourned. I want to hand it off to Rabbi Cohn to introduce our special speakers tonight.
And Mazel Tov to you, Steve, and to Lisa on graduation, on Joey's graduation from college this past weekend. All good things. So, Julie Becker, where are you, Julie? There you are. To say that you are passionate about a particular issue is to understate it, and came forward with a wonderful idea to develop with the rest of the advocacy group, with Nancy and Jill and Barbara and am I missing anybody? And Dana, thank you, to add another platform on anti-Semitism, and to develop a stronger partnership with the Anti-Defamation League. And so we're privileged this evening to have Rachel and Rebecca here to present, and just a little bit about who you are going to be seeing. This is Rachel. Rachel is a dedicated educational leader, a nonprofit executive with over a decade of experience in program administration, strategic planning, and relationship development. She has a strong background in fostering equity, inclusion, and professional growth within diverse communities. Most recently, Rachel served as Senior Director and Trainer at Mary Baldwin University's McCree Center for Life Success, where she led initiatives to enhance student engagement and career development. Rachel holds a PhD in Technology and Humanities from the Illinois Institute of Technology, with research focused on the Me Too movement and the power of storytelling for social change. Her experience spans leadership roles in nonprofit management, higher education, and K-12 education, where she has consistently created inclusive environments and supported underrepresented voices. Her partner in crime, Rebecca Weininger, is a passionate advocate as well, a nonprofit leader with deep expertise in legal advocacy, policy development, and survivor-centered support services. She currently serves as Deputy Regional Director at the Anti-Defamation League, where she oversees strategic partnerships and community initiatives to address anti-Semitism and hate in all its forms. Previously, Rebecca served as Director of Domestic Violence Practice at the North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic, and in that role, she led an award-winning legal team, created groundbreaking partnerships with local government, and helped thousands of individuals navigate the legal system with dignity and safety. With a professional background that spans law, education, and technology, that's a triple threat. Rebecca has built a career defined by innovation and impact. She is the creator of Banana Bread Help, a digital resource for survivors, which works and is the host of the Shouting from the Rooftops podcast, which works to destigmatize domestic violence through storytelling and advocacy. Her efforts have influenced tech reform, state policy, and public health initiatives, and she remains committed to building systems that center justice and community healing. Wow. Thank you both for being here tonight and for sharing with us.
Thank you, everybody. If you don't brag about your own PhD or your JD, who else is going to do it? So I'm glad you guys are listening. So I'm so excited to be here today. Like the rabbi said, my name is Rachel Hirsch, Dr. Rachel Hirsch. I'm just kidding, but I am. We're going to talk a little bit about confronting everyday anti-Semitism. This is going to be a really short presentation. I will be your flight attendant kind of through this, and I will be your ADL person. So I run the Signature Synagogues program, so you will see me. I hope you enjoy it. I'm very excited to be here. Rabbi Cohen actually married my best friend, and my best friend was bat mitzvahed here, so officiated. He did not marry Alex, but he married Alex's dad. Yes, officiated, excuse me. Yes, officiated. I should have said that, yes. So I'm so excited that Temple Jeremiah is coming into the fold of the Signature Synagogues, and I love that I have a connection to you guys. So today we're going to explore trends in anti-Semitism, kind of understand anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. We know that these are words that we're hearing. We know that these are words that our young people are looking at, but we want to ensure that we actually all know the definitions of them, right? A lot of our words are being commandeered, and we're not going to allow that to happen. We're going to talk a little bit about the Signature Synagogue program and how you can be involved. And the lift is very little. I will do the lift on the other side. I just hope you are along for the ride. And then I want to give you kind of a taste of one of the things that we're doing and some of the initiatives where we're going around and talking about really building strategies to combat anti-Semitism. And we have 6 really simple strategies that we're just going to share with you. You know what? You guys seem respectful. I'm not going to make you do the ground rules. Okay, so ADL was founded in 1913, and our mission is to stop the defamation of Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment for all. So we have a dual mission, which is really important to us. For the last couple years, we've been focusing a lot on putting our oxygen mask on first because of the extreme rise in anti-Semitism. If you do not know, the show Parade is coming to Chicago this summer. Fantastic. Okay, and this is really ADL's origin story. Comes from the story of Leo Frank and what the show Parade is based on. So I'm saying it's our superhero origin story. So there are 4 things that we challenge at ADL. 1 is anti-Semitism. The next is bigotry, bias, and discrimination. 3rd is extremism. And 4th is cyber hate. And we do this with kind of 4 pillars. 1 is investigating and research, advocating and assisting, educating and training. That's what we're doing here today, and litigation. And we have 3 research centers in that kind of first pillar. And I love to talk about these research centers because they are so cool. And as somebody who spent 4.5 years studying one thing in a research project, they study one thing, but there are so many incredible facets of the Jewish experience and anti-Semitism that they study. So we have our Center on Extremism. They study extremism. We have the largest glossary of definitions of extreme organizations, phrases, information that are utilized by us to carry out research, but also law enforcement, the FBI, to help really move the needle and give more information on what extremism and hate looks like. Next is our Center for Technology and Society. They just did an incredible project where they looked at Wikipedia and anti-Semitism that has gone rampant on Wikipedia and have really begun to kind of address it by looking at how pages have been commandeered, how or Israel pages and Jewish pages actually have to be locked because of people going in. You know how Wikipedia works, anybody can kind of work on it. having to be locked pages, and how that's kind of unfair if we want to all be able to update the information without putting crazy things in there. And then last is our Center for Anti-Semitism Research. They just did a 2-year anti-Semitism research project that really focused on how we as Jewish people can speak to non-Jews about anti-Semitism and build bridges and have them understand our plight in a way that's digestible. I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but and so these are 3 of our incredible research centers, and all of our education, our litigation, our advocacy is really based on this research that we're doing. So it's quite incredible. Nobody's just shooting from the hip. Everybody's using this research. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about anti-Semitism in the U.S. and our audit from 2024. So this past year was the highest it has ever been. We had 9,354 incidents last year, which is 25 incidents per day, about 1 incident per hour. This is unprecedented, and it is, again, a record year. We had seen the rise happen pre-10/7. 2019 was the highest year, then 2020, then 2021, and so on. The highest year prior to that was 1994. So we are in a really unprecedented time right now. And so you can see this increase from 2015. We are at an 893% increase in the last 10 years. What is considered an incident? So it's incidents of assault, harassment, or vandalism. And harassment can be verbal or physical? Mm-hmm. So what can you do about that? And one thing is be part of our Signature Synagogue program. So our Signature Synagogue program is a program where the congregation makes a commitment to challenge anti-Semitism and hate through education and engagement. And so you will get access to our programs, our resources, and any kind of learning opportunity that we have. And so what can you do as part of a Signature Synagogue? One thing is to participate in a Words to Action program. This is a mini Words to Action program we're doing today. Or one of our CAR trainings, our Center of Anti-Semitism Research trainings. We just had a program yesterday. We showed October 8th for the second time in Highland Park at the Wayfair Theaters. And we talked a little bit about CAR and how interesting the findings were and how they really help you broker those conversations with non-Jewish people so they better understand the Jewish experience and like take back a little bit of our experience back. And we set up 3 for like in this next month. So we're very excited about that. Another thing that we do is have you collaborate with other Signature Synagogues. So yesterday we had many Signature Synagogues come to the October 8th showing. But we also put together different initiatives. We have so many opportunities for you to collaborate and connect so we can put all of the great minds together. Not only in the Chicagoland area, but we in the Midwest oversee 9 states. So Indiana Jews, Minnesota Jews, even North and South Dakota Jews. And so another thing you can do is when you have an incident or when an incident occurs, you can report it. And I have a slide so you can scan that at the end. And then be an advocate in your local community. We know that you guys really do that in the synagogue, and we're very excited to help support because this is what we do all day. And we love to see that synagogues already have committees put together, and we're happy to support building in anti-Semitism within your advocacy. And then last is building bridges with other faith and cultural communities. This is something that we've put together kind of an arc of what education programming can look like through the year. And this is one of the pillars that I know that your synagogue is already works on and is interested in continuing to build. Okay, so really quickly, I know that we know, but just as a reminder, what is anti-Semitism? And this is the IRA definition of anti-Semitism. So hostility, discrimination, or hatred of Jews. This includes those who identify their Jewishness in various ways, so as a religion, ethnicity, and nationality. And then what is Zionism and anti-Zionism? So Zionism is the movement for setting up a country or home for the Jewish people in our ancestral homeland of Israel. And anti-Zionism is the opposition to Zionism. So specifically, the rejection of the state of Israel. This can take many forms. One is attacking individuals who support Zionism or denying the historic Jewish connection to the land of Israel. And so we know that this is something that you've been seeing maybe a lot in your communities or online. And so we have 6 kind of simple strategies to champion justice and to challenge that. Because we do say at ADL that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. If you are denying Jews, their ancestral home, you're trying to erase or eradicate Jews from the land, that is anti-Semitic. So here are the 6 things that you can do. First is assume good intent and explain the facts. And if you don't have the facts, we're happy to give them to you. Sometimes people just like to hear themselves talk and they say something that they have heard from, their new, expert TikTok, and they actually want, it's important as a human to connect with them and give them the correct information. The second strategy is to ask a question. If they're saying something wildly anti-Semitic, one of the examples that we give is, well, all Jews are good with money. Well, you can say, is this something you just heard about one person? Are you talking about one person? Are you completely generalizing? So ask a question. The next is just to interrupt and redirect. Sometimes it's better to come back to it. So move from the subject and then you can always come back to it. The fourth is to broaden to a universal behavior. So if we go back to all Jews are good with money, you can ask, or you can say, a lot of people are good with money. Not just Jews, and also there are Jews who are bad with money, and I know some of them. You don't have to say that, but. And then the fifth strategy is to make it individual. This one is really important, and we saw this resonated so well in that Center of Anti-Semitic Research training that we were given at ADL and that we go out and give. One of the things we realize is people may not know Jewish people or may not understand Jewish people. So if you can connect it to your own personal experience, this is far more powerful. We know this when meeting with Congress people and senators as well. They want to hear from the people. They want to hear from you. So make it individual. Tell them a story of a time that you had been affected. We tell this story now in our Anti-Semitism 101 trainings about the student Lily who wrote this beautiful article at Northwestern after 10/7. And she had said, I love myself and I love my Judaism more than any of you could hate me. And the next day, the students and students of Justice of Palestine printed out her article in a huge poster and wrote in red letters, trying to look like blood, from the river to the sea. And when we tell that story when we're on the road, people actually can feel it. Wow, her message was not political. It just was about her loving herself, and still she, had this horrible thing happen to her that was completely directed to her just for being a Jewish student. So be personal, make it individual. And then last, this is a good one because sometimes people just talk to talk, and sometimes you have to say to them, whoa, or can you repeat what you just said? Because sometimes they can't hear themselves. So these are just 6 of our kind of easy strategies to champion justice. And with that, bless you, I will turn it over to you for questions, and then I'm going to have Rebecca Weininger, who is the Deputy Director, come and help me answer questions and introduce herself a little bit as well. If there are questions.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I have been with ADL for about a year and a half. Since August, I've been the deputy. We have been through incredible things together as a Jewish community. We not only are surviving as American Jews in an atmosphere of people and a political atmosphere where we are expected to have had some sort of connection to the decisions that the Israeli government or the Israeli military make. There are misunderstandings about where our loyalties lie. What we're seeing, in fact, is a resurgence of historical tropes that people believe that have been under the surface in our country, sort of baked into this well of hatred that we, I think, up until now, didn't experience. In fact, I think most people in this room have lived incredibly charmed lives of not experiencing the level of anti-Semitism that we have since October 7th. As a community, sort of this is the moment that we need to find what unites us, that we need to speak with a unified voice. We need to use common vocabulary and define for ourselves what it means to each of us individually to be Jewish. And what we have figured out is that getting in touch with and banking those individual stories to be able to tell to each other creates community amongst all of us. And those stories being able to be told to people that might hold anti-Semitic proclivities, even if they don't know it, is the only thing that affirmatively moves the needle toward our common humanity so that we can all walk in not only peace, but in a thriving place where all of our children are safe. And that's the work that we're doing every day. I'm happy to answer questions about what it is on the ground, what that looks like on the ground. And I also invite you to ask all of your questions when we leave to Justin Shepard, who travels with us on our advocacy committee to Springfield every year, whom I've had the incredible pleasure of getting to know both personally and professionally. And he's a great ambassador. But I'm happy to answer questions about what it is to practice professional Judaism or anything else that you have about ADL, because guess what? We've sort of been a lightning rod and self-inflicted wounds lately. So if there's anything that we can tell you about the experience of working against anti-Semitism and hatred every day, we'd be happy to answer.
I have one quick question. You gave a wonderful example when someone says, oh, Jews are good with money, here is something you can say. And the facts and the story can be so complex and convoluted and twisted, and when someone is really off the rails, it's sometimes hard to gather yourself with cogent talking points.
Yeah.
Do you have in the ADL, of the 9,000 plus incidents, here are the top 5 themes in those incidents, and here are talking points to combat those?
We do. In fact, if you go to our website, right on the landing page is the audit, and you can hover over anything. You can do state by state. You can search by type of incident. You will see that there is an incredible variety. There are obviously overwhelming themes, but there are the one of the biggest rising threats to Jewish life in America is white supremacy. So you'll see an incredible increase in flyering and harassment by white supremacists, who, by definition, believe that Jews are a threat to the white lineage. Which puts us in a precarious position, right? Because we're sort of being expelled from DEI spaces where we are not sufficiently oppressed, and also not accepted by white extremists because we're not white enough. That tension is something that we see across the heat map, which you'll find on our landing page. And you can sort by whatever is of interest to you, what is predominant in Illinois, what is predominant. There's our audit data. You can scan and have it on your phone. And then, yes, we have all the strategies. And part of being a signature synagogue is that we're happy to come and talk about any delineation. We do role playing. We can come and break up into groups and actually talk through. We do this all the time with college students, by the way. We have a college student session where we talk about you're walking to class, you're thinking about what you're going to eat after class, and you run into a protest. What should you actually say? What works and what doesn't? The Center on Anti-Semitic Research, the 2-year study, is about strategic communications. The training is actually say this instead of this, and here's why. So not only is ADL dedicated to making sure that all of the strategies you can incorporate them into your actual life, but they're all data driven. Everything we do is data informed. So what we can talk to you about is not only what works, but what doesn't work, and role play enough so that you get comfortable, so that when you wind up in an unexpected situation, you can pull from that sort of bank of information that you've already stored up, because we've done that work with you. Of course.
You had shared, I can talk loud.
You're awesome. I can, yeah.
The study that was done with non-Jews, their perception of Jews, there were some really interesting things that came out of that. Could you just share a couple tidbits to give people an idea of what people think of, non-Jews think of Jews?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we had talked about is non-Jews had categorized Jews as cold and competent, which I thought was insane because I've never met a cold Jew. I go to synagogues all day, every day, and people hug me all the time, which I love.
I'm actually freezing most of the time, but it wasn't about our body temperature. It was just about
Yeah.
whether we're approachable.
And so what they meant by cold is that Jews are insular. And I don't think that's to be true either, but that is how people think about Jewish people, and that they're competent. And it's lovely to be thought of as competent, but because of that, people do not think that we need help, or that they need to maybe stand as allies with us. So that was one of the kind of pieces that came out of that.
Another is that, when I was in Hebrew school, what I really connected with were the accomplishments of the Jewish people. It was incredible to hitch my wagon to this legacy of incredible things that we have overcome. But in fact, when we speak about our accomplishments to people who might have anti-Semitic proclivities, what we're communicating is that we've had it easy. And it actually makes people more anti-Semitic. I really struggled when I first got this briefing because it kind of goes against my Jewish pride. I don't want to downplay what we've accomplished, how we've survived, but the point is not, in fact, to make people thrilled to know a Jew. It's to make them practice less hate. And so there's 7 principles that came out of the CAR research, which again are all data driven. So I'll give you another example. Not to talk about the Jewish experience, because people can't wrap their heads around the entirety of Jewishness, but to focus on our personal connection to Israel, to focus on our personal connection to hate, like Rachel was saying. So for instance, there's this incredible woman who's on our associate board. How old is Alex?
I think she's 36.
Yeah, and she said that it never occurred to her. She tells this story whenever we go. Justin's heard it whenever we go to meet with elected officials. It didn't occur to her when she and her husband got pregnant that the top criteria for the daycare that they would send their child to would be bulletproof glass. That making sure that their child was physically safe from harm. She thought she would look at, how many toys are there in the playroom, or what's your philosophy of teaching? And instead, her top priority is what hard safety features does the daycare have? So when we talk about what it's like, I have a 5-year-old. Rachel is a 2-year-old. The 2 main places where my 5-year-old has spent the last 5 years have armed guards. She doesn't know from being out of our house in a place where there are not armed guards. We are survivors of the Highland Park shooting. She was 2 years old and she's still terrified of loud noises. So this is what we experience. Our children go to school where there are armed guards. Our children go to services. We go to Tot Shabbat where there are armed guards. She doesn't blink at that. And when we tell the story of how we would hope for everybody else that their children never have to go someplace where there are armed guards, that is what moves the needle. Not talking about Jewish oppression, not talking about Jewish accomplishments, but the fact that my children go to shul where there are armed guards. and I have to explain that to them. So when we talk about the actual experience, in fact, one of the things that the CAR research showed, this is where I thought Rachel was going, is that the picture that most people responded to was a Shabbos dinner. That made people feel warmly about Jews, because this is how we spend our time. We sit down and we break bread together. That is a universal experience about which we can speak and have a shared humanity. I am happy to come and do this CAR training. It is actually, it's 1 hour. It changed, my advocacy. It changed the way that I talk. It also changed the way that I see other marginalized communities, because it gave me a language that we all can speak. I've devoted my entire life to connections with marginalized communities, and still, this research helped me start conversations about our common humanity because of the way that we talk about being Jewish. Just small stuff, really lighthearted, yeah.
Rebecca, when we were speaking a little bit beforehand, you had mentioned that you had spent some time lobbying Springfield, and I didn't get to ask my question, what type of legislation are you actually looking for that can have an impact on fighting anti-Semitism? So now's my opportunity.
I did not plant this question. Please look at your congregation and tell them that I did not make you ask me this question. Thanks for asking. Look.
She did not plant the question.
What we care about is what moves the needle on hate. I fundamentally believe that Jewish children are not safe until Black children are safe, until Latino children are safe, until Latino children are not being dragged into social workers' offices to plan for what happens if they go home and their parents aren't there. My children are not safe. So when we talk about legislation, particularly on the state level, we are looking at legislation that moves the needle for everybody. So the two pieces of legislation that we have cared about, particularly in the last 2 years, are hate crimes training for all law enforcement. It will shock you to know that in the state of Illinois, law enforcement is not required to be trained on what a hate crime is. So whether the responding officers to a hate crime can identify and investigate a hate crime depends on where you live and whether that police department opted into hate crimes training. So what we want is for every law enforcement officer, upon becoming an officer, and then every 3 years, be trained in what the heck a hate crime is. So this will be the difference between responding to an assault and saying, what did you see? And responding to an assault and saying, what did you hear? Did your assailant yell anything at you? And if the officer doesn't know to ask you that question, they will not be able to identify that your assault was a hate crime. So that's number one. And that's, to us, obviously very meaningful. The second piece of legislation that we've been working on is an anti-flyering bill that targets particularly white supremacist hate flying. First, before anybody in the room asks me whether I have a First Amendment issue with this, here's how we get around we don't get around the First Amendment. We take it very seriously. You have to be able to show that the person who, put the flyer on your private property did it because you are a member of a protected class, threatened your physical safety, and had the capacity to carry out the threat. So there is no chilling effect on speech when we talk about eliminating or penalizing hate flyering. What we're talking about is a very targeted intention, particularly by white nationalists, white supremacist extremists, to go after Black and Jewish and brown and LGBT communities, target them specifically at their private property, threatening them with physical harm. So those are the kinds of bills that we support because they make us safer, because they make everybody safer.
And we've seen an increase in flyering, specifically flyering like with rat poison. So that's where a lot of this came from too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's what we do every single day, right? So we stand up for our other marginalized communities. We do it very publicly through tweeting, through press conferences, and then we do it very quietly by asking them, what does it mean to you right now for us to be an ally? One of the things that I think was the biggest gut punch to us after October 7th was the deafening quiet of other marginalized communities in the face of the slaughter of all of those Jews, the largest amount of Jews since the Holocaust. That was devastating. I came to ADL after October 7th. I left my job after October 7th to pursue being a full-time Jew. And ADL was reeling. Honestly, ADL was unmoored at the time, right after October 7th. Our leadership were our people. You'll be shocked to know that the leadership of ADL are all people who just couldn't, who had such an insane trauma in a response to October 7th that the whole organization kind of came unmoored. And when the light began to shine again, there was a deep sadness that October 8th did not bring a wellspring of contact and love from other marginalized communities. And we as an organization had to make a really fundamental decision. Is this the moment that we back up from those relationships, or is this the moment where we lean in? And in the Midwest, we've decided to lean in. We've decided that whatever is going on that is making those other marginalized communities quiet, we will not follow suit. We will keep reaching out to them. We will make sure that they have unabashed access to our resources, our love, and our intellectual and emotional commitment to them. And we have done that in all of the ways. We go to their galas. We meet with them for coffee. Whatever it looks like to them, however they are defining allyship in this moment, we have chosen to lean in.
In some of our dialogue in the community, people are sometimes afraid to engage honestly because their fear is that if they don't like Israel or its leadership or policy, that then they will be branded as anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if in our toolkit or trainings, do we have ways to help separate politics from anti-Semitism per se?
If we can't do that, then ADL should take a back seat. If ADL can't make sure that you know how to talk about how necessary criticism of democratically elected governments is, including the US and including Israel, if we can't as Jews stand up and say that this government's decisions does not speak for me, then we're not doing our jobs. I believe so wholeheartedly that that kind of dissent is necessary for a thriving democracy, and that we do not hold Israel to a lower standard than we hold ourselves. So as ADL, it is our mission to make sure that you are equipped to talk about the difference between dissenting from decisions of the Israeli government and the Israeli military, while not ever crossing the line into saying that that should result in the eradication of the state. Because there isn't another state out there that receives that kind of scrutiny, with the result being that that state shouldn't exist. We have to be able to foster the conversations that are critical of the decisions of a democratically elected government, while simultaneously standing firm that that doesn't result in the eradication of the state itself.
That's good, because I think even within the Jewish community, there's a sense that if you voice criticism of the Israeli government, you're creating a fissure in our wall, that's being built against it.
I think it creates a bigger fissure to say that the Israeli government can do no wrong while we're watching it do wrong. I think it's much more intellectually honest to say they're screwing it up. I don't want any dead anybody. I want all innocent people to thrive. I believe in self-determination for the people of the state of Israel, and I hope that one day for the people of the land of Palestine. I don't agree with the decisions that are being made, but that does not at all threaten my devotion to the existence of the state of Israel. If you wonder where I stand on that, we can have a conversation later. Yeah, it just depends on what side of the bed I wake up on. Right, good point. What else can I tell you about how amazing we are? Yeah.
You're amazing.
Thanks, and so are you.
I came into this conversation a little skeptical because I feel like the narrative that I've heard about the ADL was that it was sort of, I don't know, like leaning a little right and like being conservative and becoming more isolationist. And then everything that you have said has completely dispelled that.
All right, well, I'll just leave. That's the only reason I came.
I don't know what my question, I guess my question is like, where does that narrative come from? And how do we
Yeah.
dispel it? And
So, okay, so there are two answers to your question. The first is self-inflicted wounds. I will say that after Trump took office, we committed some unforced errors, and when I say we, I mean national, not Midwest. Midwest, we've gotten everything right, but national, was not prepared, and I can't tell you the extent to which those errors have interrupted the day-to-day work that Rachel and I do. We create these relationships. We show up. We are out on the street, actually walking door to door to say, like, we're here, we're not going anywhere, and we'd love to sit down at the table with you. And then we spent so much time and emotional energy talking about Elon Musk, which I will tell you is not on my bingo card and not in my job description, right? And it set us so far back in the work that we have worked so hard to do as what I would call an incredibly progressive organization insofar as we believe in the lifting up of marginalized communities and equity between brother and sisters, right? So that is work that got completely undermined and flipped on its head because of unforced errors. We just got some stuff wrong. And in 110 years of our existence, we're gonna get some stuff wrong because extraordinary times make people a little crazy. And we're run by people, right? And so we got it wrong for a few minutes because people were really overwhelmed and making bad decisions for the organization. Okay, yes, we got it wrong. And I don't think there's any harm in saying that. In fact, I feel very strongly about being women who stand up and say, we're gonna fail out loud sometimes, but guess what? I'm inherently an amazing person, and I want you to judge me on this whole body of work, right? We don't give ourselves that grace, particularly as women advocates. So I will say the first part is that it was self-inflicted. The second part is that anti-Semitism is a real thing. And there is a very strong movement to tear down institutional Judaism right now. We as a Jewish people derive an incredible amount of strength from our Jewish communities, right? From our Jewish institutions. I'm a member at Bethel in Highland Park. I'm a conservative Jew. The first thing I did when I moved to Highland Park was join a shul because that's what defines me. I wanted to make sure that I could wake up on Saturday morning and have a place to go and I didn't have to explain who I am. So the strength that we that we as a community pour into and take out of our Jewish institutions is what's at stake, and ADL sort of is the flagship, right, of how Jewish communities thrive 113 years later, right? And so yes, part of it we brought on ourselves, and when I say we, it was a bunch of dudes sitting in New York, right? But then the other part is just active anti-Semitism, and that's what anti-Semitism looks like. It is intended to bring doubt to the Jewish community that you are well represented by your Jewish institutions. And I am here to say that we are that. We are your Jewish institution. And by the way, we're not always going to agree. There are going to be things that my organization is going to say with which you don't agree. And that doesn't mean that either one of us is wrong. It means that we are not a monolith. It means that we need to lean into the fact that we are all Jewish and we can be Jewish and disagree agreeably. And if you come to me and say, I couldn't disagree with you more, I will listen. I will actively listen to what you say, and I will take it into account when I make other decisions for our institution. Of course. Thanks for having us. I really hope that this is the beginning of the conversation, not a one-off. We are here and we want to be involved, and we want to do it in a way that is driven by the values of this congregation. So thanks for having us.
And I'd like to thank Rachel and Rebecca for doing your thing with the ADL, for giving us a flavor for what the ADL is all about, and a shout out to Julie for agreeing to be our champion advocate for our new anti-Semitism platform. And being a signature synagogue. So we look forward to seeing you all again. And anything else?
yeah, so just the parade is a musical about the lynching of Leo Frank, which was the sort of impetus for the
Okay, thank you, Cantor, and thank you everyone for being here. Do you have anything to add?
So just, if we need 10 people, Leslie is in a period of mourning for the passing of her mother and has asked if for those who can stay for a few minutes for Kaddish, we will be gathering in the chapel where there are prayer books for everyone. So before you leave, if you want to participate in a mitzvah, please join us in the chapel.
Class is dismissed.